I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. Our next guest is the founder and president of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, founder of the Haiti Support Project, convener of the National African American Reparations Commission, former executive director of the National Rainbow Coalition, Southern Regional Coordinator and Deputy Campaign Manager for Jesse Jackson for President in 1988, the first boss I ever had, and the host of Vantage Point, WBAI 99.5 FM in Pacifica, New York, New York. Dr. Ron Daniels, welcome to KBLA Talk 1580. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful, doing wonderful.
Dr.
And
Daniels, I am so proud of you, and I never thought in this lifetime that I'd ever have the privilege or the opportunity to interview you.
well, you got that privilege and all that good stuff. But let me just first of all commend you on joining the lineup, the incredible lineup at KBLA with Tavis Smiley, who is one of the really truly iconic journalists of our time, without question. It's a great addition. It'll add to the power of it and what Tavis is attempting to do. And we know you're going to be incredibly successful at it because, you know, you got some of your dad in you. You some of that. I used to call your dad an authentic genius. So you got some of that in you too, my brother.
I appreciate you. Dr. Daniels, I brought you here on a very, very serious subject matter because of your advocacy. And we're going to spend the entire hour discussing this with you. And I want you to take your time through these segments. I want to talk about the Haitian crisis, the history of Haiti and the United States, why Haitians are so important to the history of the United States, and how it all culminated in what happened in Springfield, Ohio. And towards the end of our show, take as much time as you'd like on what we must do next to support the Haitian immigrants and the Haitian people. Dr. Daniels, your thoughts.
Yeah, delighted to do that. And let me just also say that Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson is certainly one of the great advocates on behalf of Haiti for all these many, many, many years. And I've come to love Haiti and to admire the work of the Haitian people, but it's not just sentimentality. People should understand that when you're talking about Haiti, we all owe a debt of gratitude to Haiti for shattering the myth of white supremacy in the era of the propagation of the myth of white supremacy. So if we go back historically, you're looking at the Haitian Revolution in 1804. You're looking at a time when this is the era of the growth, of the birth of this idea of different races and ethnicities, and the notion that, you know, the Indo-Aryans and white, because Caucasians were at the top, the Caucasoids, the Mongoloids, and the Negroids, and the Negroids at the bottom, and whatever. And this was a notion that was being propagated, not so much necessarily to begin with to exploit people, but eventually it did. And along come these enslaved Africans in this place called various names. Hispaniola was one of the names that it was called, one of the richest colonies in the Caribbean. And here come these enslaved Africans. I call it a Pan-African revolution because they came from everywhere. There were people who came from Cuba, people who came from Grenada, and they came from Jamaica, as was the person of Boukman, who is a figure that's often not cited. But the important point is these enslaved Africans overthrew, defeated the army of one of the greatest generals in the history of the world, rivaling Hannibal. And I use my words deliberately because Hannibal was one of the greatest generals of all time, Napoleon Bonaparte. And they established the first Black republic in the history of the world. It is the first time ever that an enslaved people overthrew their slave masters to create an independent nation. That never happened before in the history of the world. And the other thing we have to look at contextually is, I argue that the Haitian Revolution was the greatest of the three revolutions in that era. The French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity, which inspired in part the American Revolution. But the fact of the matter is that neither of those revolutions abolished enslavement. They did not. And it was only really from the perspective of human rights that you have the Haitian Revolution abolishing slavery. And people should remember that what the Haitian revolutionaries said, that any Black person anywhere, and in fact, any enslaved person anywhere that sets foot on the soil of Haiti would be free. And beyond that, you cannot look at the liberation of South America without talking about Simon Bolivar, and you cannot talk about the liberation of South America without understanding that it was the Haitians who armed Simon Bolivar. I have been to Jacmel. I've been to the place where he actually stayed. They armed him, they equipped him, and they supported him as he moved in to Colombia and those areas and liberated South America. So that is in a part of the story, but there's a much larger story as well.
Can I just cut you off by saying that you're suggesting that the independence movement, that there is a streak that is in the DNA of the Haitians for freedom that is far more liberating than any history we've experienced ourselves.
Absolutely, because if you can use different lenses. If you use human rights as the lens, then the question becomes, did the French actually liberate the slaves? Well, for a moment they emancipated the slaves, but then they re-enslaved them under Napoleon Bonaparte, which is the point I'm getting ready to come to, because Napoleon had this grand vision. But before I get to that, if you're talking about the American Revolution, this nation of America, in the critical battle of Savannah, which was one of the crucial battles that determined the outcome of the American Revolution, that is to say, to enable the colonists to break away from the mother country to establish an independent nation, it was it was Haitian troops under Henri Christophe, who, by the way, had learned under the French, because as you recall, you had the French lining up in this balance of power conflict on the side of these American revolutionaries. They were opposed to King George in the balance of power that was unfolding in that period. So they were involved in the decisive battle. In fact, there's a monument in Savannah that gives testimony and tribute to the Haitian troops who fought to liberate this country, from the British. And then beyond that, the larger story is Napoleon re-enslaved. He recaptured actually Toussaint Louverture and imprisoned him, where Toussaint actually died abroad because of this. I mean, and Toussaint was one of the great diplomats of his era. He was a diplomat. He was a person fighting to save his people. He navigated and negotiated. He didn't really push for full independence initially because he was trying to just nurture and grow the Haitian people. But Napoleon would have none of that.
Dr. Daniels, we're going to spend some serious time on Toussaint when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. with Dr. Ron Daniels.
Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months. and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that 3 out of 4 adults in the United States have a high risk factor for severe COVID-19. And Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
As we go a little something like this.
Hey, it is me, D.L. Hugo, and I am thrilled to be heard weekdays in my hometown on KBLA Talk 1580. So check out the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. Our special guest is Dr. Ron Daniels, who is walking us through the history of the Haitian people and the history of their relationship to the United States. We are at Toussaint Louverture, a Haitian general, but believe me when I tell you, before this hour is over, we're going to work our way right up to Springfield, Ohio, the vigilante groups and the Ku Klux Klan, and the promise of Donald Trump to deport thousands of people, many of them beginning from Haitian origins, back to their countries of origin, even though many of them are naturalized citizens in the United States. We don't want to escape the history and just react to the moment, and we need none other than Dr. Ron Daniels to help us get there. Dr. Daniels, you were talking about Toussaint Louverture.
Yeah, talking about Toussaint Louverture, but let me just reinforce how important what you are doing and why important again KBLA is, because only on KBLA we have these kinds of conversations that are very important in terms of educating our people for action. And so when you look at what occurs is that Napoleon, who was, conquered most of Europe and had cast his eyes again on the Western Hemisphere. And people should understand, because when, history can be very boring unless you understand sort of the context and turning points and all that. So in the French and Indian War, which was a war between the British forces in this country, the British territories, and the French territories, the British won, which in effect helped to clear up, with George Washington helped to clear up the eastern part of the United States. But it did not liberate a huge swath of territory that came to be known as the Louisiana Purchase, was still controlled by the French. And so Napoleon, with his imperial mind, turning his attention to commerce and economic development, could envision Hispaniola or Haiti being the base for an economic empire that would trace its way all the way up through New Orleans and the Mississippi River to that vast territory and all of the riches and resources that were there, and then connecting on to Canada because the French still controlled Canada. Well, the Haitian revolutionaries mucked it up, you know what I mean? And they did it by defeating again, which is just one of the great marvels. And let me just say this, we know about Pétion, Alexander Pétion, we know about Henri Christophe, and these generals, and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who was the one who actually declared Haitian independence in 1804 from the city of in 1804. But the piece that people don't often understand and know about is Boukman. I always raise up Boukman's name because Boukman was the voodoo priest, and we shouldn't get nervous about that. I mean, it's a part of African history, and it's a legitimate, I hate to say that word, it's a real religion and so forth. But in 1792, at a place called Wakaima, he gathered, Toussaint was there, Pétion was there, all of Jean-Jacques Dessalines was there for a prayer service, what we would call a prayer service. And he steeled the Haitian people with the conviction that they could win. And I strongly believe this, because when you looked at what happened, they were going wave after wave after wave. Not everybody had cannons and weapons. Some people just had cutlasses and spears and whatever. And he prayed. And I'm going to ask you and the audience to Google Boukman's prayer. And in effect, what he said was, I don't understand the white man's God. I don't understand the God of oppression and the God of exploitation and the God of exploitation. I believe in the black man's God and our God. And he said, our God is a righteous God. Our God is a just God, and he will deliver us from oppression. That's sort of a summary of it. And I believe that it was that spirit more than anything else that girded the Haitians against a superior, quote unquote, superior force in order to defeat the armies of Napoleon. The consequence of that is that Napoleon threw up his hands. He said, this is my dream has been ruined. And so therefore he negotiated with Thomas Jefferson to in effect turn over this huge territory of what we would call a song and a dance. He almost gave it away. That Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the United States of America. Doubled the size. And in doubling the size, it also created an avenue for people who were bottled up on the East Coast, the so-called pioneers moving west, to have a whole new space to exploit, so to speak, in terms of their futures and whatever. And so if you look at it from that perspective, the United States of America owes a debt of gratitude to the Haitian people.
Yes, it does.
This is not charity. Your father always should talk. This is not charity. This is like the United States should never look at it that way anyway. But in this instance, this is a special relationship. And Marc Morial, the president of the National Urban League, is of Haitian descent. He talks about, they haven't talked about that as he was coming up and so forth, the contributions of Haitians. And if you're talking about a Haitian American in terms of Marc Morial, but you look at in terms of the engineers, the poets, the writers who have fanned out throughout this country, also in that regard to contribute. But
what I think I heard, I just want to encapsulate it, and I'd love for you to continue, Dr. Daniels. What I think I've heard is that the Haitians made obviously a greater contribution to the development of the United States and the Western states than did, let's say, the French, than let's say, the Italians, than less of a contribution than the Germans. And their contribution, their historic contribution to the United States is underscored, undervalued when we look at German immigration, Italian immigration, Irish integration, and European integration to the United States.
That's absolutely true, because in a way you created the space again, which also makes it more ironic in a very interesting kind of way, because you created the pathway for others to grow and develop, even while as we are people were enslaved in this country and still not developed. But here's the other part of this.
So when some Democrats don't understand and some Republicans refuse to understand that Haitians had a significant role in the development of modern America.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, if you're talking about enslavement contributing, in terms of the wealth that was extracted, so is the Louisiana Purchase. It doubled the size of the United States of America. All in Nebraska, Iowa. I mean, it's just unbelievable what happened in that regard.
The Louisiana Purchase. I studied the Louisiana Purchase in high school, elementary school, and obviously in college, but it was never taught in a way.
And that's why, again, we're not only talking about the miseducation, quote unquote, of the Negro, we're talking about the miseducation of Americans, period. Wow. Because I happen to believe that if more people knew better, they would do better. But that's this dumbing down of history and so forth. But here's the other thing that was so important about it from the perspective of African Americans, because we too, obviously, as Langston Hughes would say, we too are a part of this country. And even Abraham Lincoln is interesting, because Abraham Lincoln recognized the importance of the Haitian Revolution. It was because it became a beacon of hope and promise for oppressed people everywhere. And so Lincoln, for the wrong reasons, was looking for a way because even though he did not believe in slavery, he did not also believe that black people were equal. I mean, that's just a flaw, and that's what it is. So his objective was really to persuade black people to migrate en masse to a place where they would have their own, and that would be Haiti. And he appointed Frederick Douglass to be the first ambassador to Haiti. A lot of people are not aware of that. Wow. And Douglass, and by the way, and Douglass said to Lincoln, you should be, I'm paraphrasing, right. Abe, I'm not going down there to exploit my people. We're going down there to help my people. But the other thing is, when I say a beacon of hope, you got to remember now, as Africa, but in this country, as we launched the Black freedom struggle, even beyond emancipation, there was all this notion that we could not govern ourselves, that we were not capable, we were not able. But at all times, there was a nation out there called Haiti that demonstrated that Black people could do it because they were an independent nation. So the largest slave rebellion coming out of South Carolina that was organized, guess where the slaves were on their way? They were on their way to Haiti had that slave rebellion succeeded. Wow. Because they heard about it. There was no email, there was no Instagram, there was none of that happening, but the drum beat was out there. And so that was very well known. In the civil rights movement, if you trace it back, when the United States invaded Haiti in 1914, the NAACP came to the defense of Haiti, fought against the invasion. That invasion lasted all the way up to 1934. Walter White, president of the NAACP, was a staunch advocate for the liberation and freedom of Haiti, because what it meant was he was an independent nation. He was a free nation. And that freedom indicated we too can be free. We too can be senators and legislators and everything because Haiti had already demonstrated what those possibilities were. Now, the other thing I'm going to want to quickly just lay out has nothing to do with the United States, but it does have to do with the question of reparations, because Haiti has also been marginalized, stigmatized ever since. It has been punished for having shattered the myth of white supremacy. And the French threatened to come back. They threatened to come back and recolonize Haiti, even though Haiti has they built these tremendous, and Henri Christophe did this, fortresses all across the northern part of the country. And I've taken people to La Citadelle, which is one of the great fortresses, one of the great wonders of the world. But a weaker Haitian president succumbed and paid the French 100 million francs in reparations. In other words, Haiti had to pay the French and paying off that debt went well into the 20th century, and kept Haiti in a very, very destitute kind of circumstance.
Unbelievable. I'm lining up these dates here. So 1852, you have Frederick Douglass saying, "What to the slave is the 4th of July." Then in 1854, you have the founding of the Anti-Slavery Party in Ripon, Wisconsin, that would call itself the Republican Party. By 1860, they find a candidate for president in Abraham Lincoln. Sometime during that period, as president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln encourages Frederick Douglass to leave leave African Americans and go to Haiti to be the ambassador. He says, "No, I'm hanging here with my people." But I get what you're saying. There is a relationship between our freedom struggle and the 4th of July and everything we're doing here, because we got Haitian DNA in us.
That's
and
right.
Then by the time we get to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, many African Americans have studied the republic within Haiti, of being senators and being congressmen, and also the first African Americans who went back to Liberia to set up their own nation. And the first 9 presidents of Liberia in Africa become what? African American presidents who were in America and went back to Africa. So you've got a freedom movement that has nothing to do at one level or another with just boycotting buses or fighting for the right to vote. We're really trying to reach the level of civilization that the Haitians have already attained.
Right, and by the way, there's another movement, and there's a book by Reverend Dr. Leon Pamphile. Reverend Dr. Leon Pamphile, who wrote a book called it's called Haitian Americans: A Legacy of Pain and Struggle, or some such thing. But you should look it up because he traces this history. Because you also had T. Thomas Fortune from the AME Church, who took a large contingent to Haiti and tried to set up an ability to have not colonies, but to have settlements there and whatnot. It was complicated because of the language. The language barrier was somewhat difficult, but that was a major movement as well. And it just continued on and on and on, well into the 20th century. You had this relationship with Haiti that continues to this very time.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. We're on with Dr. Ron Daniels. And when we come forward, we're working our way to the modern Republican Party and Springfield, Ohio. When we come forward.
You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tyreek Wynn with 4 things you should know from BIN News. A new paper published by doctors of Emory Sports Cardiology Program in Georgia found black athletes are 5 times more likely to die of sudden cardiac arrest than white athletes. President Biden and his wife are increasing the visibility of those dealing with HIV and AIDS. The White House celebrated World AIDS Day by displaying the AIDS Memorial quilt on the South Lawn. A 9-year-old boy is dead after a shooting at his grandfather's house in Compton, California. Najee Ali, director of Project Islamic Hope, spoke about the shooting on Sunday night. The boy who had autism was shot on Saturday. Bronx, New York native and actress Kerry Washington is receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Washington, who is also an Emmy award-winning producer, is well known for a groundbreaking role as Olivia Pope in the hit ABC drama Scandal. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
In Baldwin Park, a stall on the 10 eastbound has things slow. It's connected to the 605 there, and that's creating traffic back to City Terrace. In Vernon on the 710 northbound at Atlantic Boulevard, we've got a 2-car collision there over on the right-hand shoulder, but watch for slowing as you approach. In Linwood on the 710 northbound connector to the 105, there's a crash on the shoulder of that connector, and that's creating slow traffic back to the piers. In Brea on the 57 northbound, it's the off-ramp to Lambert Road. We've got a crash blocking the left turn lane of that off-ramp. And in Westminster, a conked-out car at the center divider for 405 northbound after Bolsa Chica.
Time with family, laughs with friends, and cash back? Discover's got you covered on the last one. That's because Discover doubles all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cash Back Match. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tiger Woods said he's not close to being physically ready to return to the PGA Tour. The 48-year-old Woods has been battling a variety of injuries since he was seriously hurt in a car crash near LA in 2021. Tiger suffered major damage to his right foot and right leg. The 15-time major champion revealed he had surgery on his back in September. Tiger has had 6 back surgeries during the later years of his career. Tiger was limited to only 5 PGA events in 2024. He missed the cut on 3 of them and finished 60th at the Masters. The Clippers are going for their 8th straight home win tonight. They play Portland at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Houston Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair was given a 3-game suspension by the NFL for his violent hit Sunday on Jacksonville quarterback Trevor Lawrence. The suspension will cost Al-Shaair $265,000. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
The Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive.
1580. Welcome back. I'm on the show now with Dr. Ron Daniels, who's gotten us on this question of the history of Haiti and Haitian engagement and involvement in the development of the United States. We left off during the Civil War. You're walking us now through first Reconstruction, on through Jim Crow, to second Reconstruction, and then to what we just experienced as Americans. Dr. Ron Daniels.
Yeah, and I think that quickly, we also have to understand that Haiti gets caught up in the geopolitics after the Second World War in terms of the anti-communist scare, if you will. So the United States, one of the criteria, for a long, long time, the United States would support almost anybody that they perceived to be anti-communist, because communism was the great fear and the great terror and so forth and so on. And in that regard, unfortunately, the United States supported one of the most ruthless, brutal dictatorships in the world, in the person of Baby Doc, Jean-Claude Duvalier. And people knew about the Tonton Macoots. As a young Pan-Africanist, we had relationships all over the Caribbean. The one place that we did not know much about and feared was Haiti, because it was so terrifying. It rivaled what was going on in South Africa in terms of the brutality of it. And that was very, very unfortunate. Now, eventually, then you have Baby Doc, and eventually, that cracks and it breaks to some degree.
Papa Doc and Baby Doc, it was a father and son arrangement.
Yeah, Baby Doc was the son that succeeded him, and there's a whole Duvalier camp that got nurtured and supported by the United States. They didn't support the freedom fighters. They were supporting because they were anti-communist. That was the only criteria that you actually needed. And therefore, you also have something called, and your father was we had something called the wet foot, dry foot policy. Because Cubans, because they were fighting against the Cubans who came to this country once Fidel Castro took power. The United States did not support Fidel against Batista, the dictator. They supported they were opposed to Fidel. So therefore, if Cubans came to this country, that was called the hit destroyer. They were allowed in, but not Haitians. Haitians were not allowed in, and they were turned back.
Explain that to our listeners. Now, how did they go from becoming supporters of the American Revolution, critical in their agreements to expand the United States into the Western territories with the Louisiana Purchase, to now suddenly the Haitians find themselves as outcasts in the society and not allowed to participate?
Well, they were considered outcasts simply because, again, the criteria for U.S. policy post the Second World War was the great enemy was communism. And so, unfortunately, I mean, this is why we've been fighting for a more perfect union. I mean, there was no, Jimmy Carter was one of the first presidents who came and talked about human rights. There was no consideration for human rights in terms of U.S. policy under John Foster Dulles and people like that. They were concerned about fighting communism, period. And in so doing, they would support most of the revolutions that took place in Central and South America were revolutions against these ruthless dictatorships in Nicaragua, all over the Caribbean, and Batista in Cuba. But the United States was on the wrong side because they were, again, opposing the idea of communism. So in that regard, all de Vallier had to say was whether he really was not, whether he was anti-communist or not, was I'm anti-communist, and therefore he was supported. And all of that brutality and ruthlessness.
That's almost impossible for generations X, Y, and Z. I'm 59 years old to understand that the Cold War was like this massive chessboard around the world where the United States' influence and Russia's influence treated the world as some kind of global chess game.
That's right.
And they identified leaders that identified with the American empire or the Soviet influence. And in this particular case, these leaders, paid off by the Central Intelligence Agency, working essentially for and with the State Department, exploiting their own people, even though they were the same color in many instances,
right,
not only in the Caribbean, but also in Africa. All they had to say was, I'm against communism.
That's all.
And that justified the exploitation.
That's what it was. So therefore, fast forward the tape, you have, therefore, the United States also interfering clumsily in Haiti's affairs throughout the 60s and the 70s. You really don't get a opportunity for democracy to develop until Jean-Bertrand Aristide explodes onto the scene, captures the imagination of the Haitian people. But then he too was overthrown by an internal elite, which again aligned with the United States of America, did not want to see that kind of development in the person of Aristide, because it was seen as threatening, because how will they line up? The same thing if you go to Grenada, by the way, the same thing. Grenada, the Grenada implosion took place and the invasion took place, and they said they feared that Grenada would become the equivalent of an English-speaking Cuba. Again, that's sort of paranoia.
So when I was growing up, Dr. Daniels, and you were the executive director of the National Rainbow Coalition, I remember President Jean-Bertrand Aristide having dinner in my home, Secret Services outside of my home, while Reverend Jackson and yourself and others were in discussions with Aristide about the needs of the Haitian people. This might have been in the 80s. Work with you, Dr.
This would have been in the 80s. This would have been in the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah, because the 80 was overthrown. He was overthrown and on more than one occasion. But the bottom line is that, to sort of come to the conclusion of this, and in terms of where we are now, that Haitians do come into the country by various means. And let me just say this: you have to also remember, people forget, the Haitians were blamed for HIV/AIDS. People forget that.
That they sure were.
Yeah, and they were sent to Guantanamo and isolated. The reason I remember that because it was at the Center for Constitutional Rights where Michael Ratner took the case to the Supreme Court that freed them up from Guantanamo. because the Haitians were not responsible, so forth and so on. But that myth was there, and that fear was there of Haiti because of that. But at the end of the day, you have this era of sort of mingling, interfering in Haiti, right up to the present to some degree, because the United States has never really understood nor focused in a very sympathetic and effective way in terms of how to build a relationship there. But in the most recent period, that actually began to change in terms of the internal dynamics. And I was honored to come to Rainbow Push on January 9th to bring a series of leaders for something called the Montana Accord Movement, because there is a current crisis, again, because of bungled U.S. policy, because they were supporting the wrong people or unwilling to be effective in that regard. And so this Montana Accord Movement has a great promise for moving the country forward, but we have a problem in relationship to who's now in power.
Dr. Ron Daniels, you have brought us to a very, very special place from the inception of the relationship with Haiti and the United States to contemporary American politics. When we come forward, Dr. Ron Daniels is going to share with us where we are, how we got here in the present, and what we can do to help our allies, the people of Haiti. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA 1580, Talk Radio.
On the news of the day, you're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This season, Chevy brings classic pairings, cookies and milk, mistletoe and kisses, and your holiday plans and a new Chevy. Silverado 1500 gives you power and capability with 430 pound-feet of torque to haul your holiday tree. The Equinox EV and all-new Equinox, America's best compact SUV for new vehicle quality by J.D. Power, offer both confidence and style to see you through the holiday season. It's easy to see why Chevy makes everything better and brighter. Find your red tag. Get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select popular Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. Award based on 2024 models. For J.D. Power 2024 U.S. Initial Quality Study award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment is 26.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/25.
Medicare open enrollment is here, and it's a time you can make changes to your health coverage. Yet, watch out for enrollment and marketing scams. Remember, Medicare will neither call you nor solicit your business. Guard your card. Never give out your Medicare number to strangers. Unsolicited calls, door-to-door visits, and emails are prohibited. Take your time. Don't feel pressured to make a quick decision. Report scams to our California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080.
Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. By any other name, we demand environmental justice in 2024 and beyond. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA Talk 1580. Our special guest is Dr. Ron Daniels, former executive director of the Rainbow Coalition, founder and president of the Institute of Black World 21st Century, founder of the Haiti Support Project and convener of the National African American Reparations Commission. Dr. Daniels, you have brought us to contemporary politics, to the presidential debate, and we want to hear from you on how our most dedicated allies in our struggle for independence became the bane of society in the eyes of a political party.
Well, quickly, let me just say that eventually the wet foot, dry foot policy was abandoned. I don't know when, I don't know whatever, but what the U.S. did adopt is something called TPS, Temporary Protective Status, which means that people who are being oppressed or harmed anywhere can come into the country for a period of time to seek safety and security, and then they can return and whatnot. And sometimes it's extended, and sometimes people are granted green cards and whatever and asked to get onto a path for citizenship in the United States of America. Well, that's in part how the Haitian community grew in Miami, huge community, thriving community, Boston, New York, Philadelphia. I mean, thriving Haitian communities all across this country, and elected officials all over, including Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste there in Evanston. There's the Attorney General, I think, the Kwame
Raoul
out there, and then Marie St. Clair, the first elected official, and so forth. So the people who come under temporary protective status are not illegals. They're not undocumented. They're not in that category. And I'm not saying that negatively, because they should not be criminalized or maligned either. So what we have in this most recent period, with a crisis going on in Haiti, people therefore fleeing in order to get into this country and whatnot, you have people coming into the country, and they go to Springfield, Ohio. And they go to Springfield, Ohio, and do what many immigrants do. It's not necessarily unique to Haitians. They actually contribute to building out communities in upstate New York that was being hollowed out, and these communities were dying. Many of them, including Buffalo and upstate Utica and so on. These communities have been revived by immigrants who come in, build economies. They're hard workers. They're very, very diligent. But because of a kind of really, really sick policy, anti-immigrant policy, xenophobic policy in this country, you had a particular political party, and this the party of the MAGA movement under Donald J. Trump, that seized upon not only the Haitians, but in a way it was so terrible the way in which they came down on Haitians, creating a lie, an outright lie, an outright fabrication that they were eating the pets. I guess there was some suggesting that we were cannibals, that we would, or we would eat, and then they admitted that they lied, but they used it to denigrate. And the problem with it is it terrified Haitians. It frightened Haitians. They were being attacked. They were being threatened in a way that, again, is counterintuitive in the sense that, as you have characterized it, here are people who contributed to the birth of the United States of America and its growth and development and evolution to be a powerful nation. And here they are being denigrated in this way. And so we had people organizing around that issue. That issue is still one that we have to deal with now. But in this period, we have to remain conscious of what's going on in Haiti. And it's going to be difficult in this period. But we're organizing to try to support and to get Biden at this point, before he leaves office, to take an extraordinary measure to make sure that not only that Haitians are protected here, extension of temporary protective status, but that humanitarian and military assistance can be extended so that the beleaguered Haitian police on the ground and forces can help push back these gangs so that they can be neutralized, so that the prospect of a people-based democracy can finally take hold in the world's first Black republic.
So you're calling on Biden to extend the temporary protected status.
Yes.
And you're also calling on, in the 48 days remaining in the Biden administration, the release of an economic package to Haiti to help them survive and to strengthen and to rebuild their democracy. Tell us about what's going on in Haiti with respect to the new convening council and its governing structure.
Well, suffice it to say that out of this council, out of the crisis, what eventually emerged, and have something to do with that in supporting the idea of a temporary presidential council to get to elections eventually. And that's a longer story, because what's been happening, we've had these band-aid elections where the previous administration got 51% of the 15% who turned out to vote. I mean, it's ridiculous. That was no kind of mandate. So a problem are gangs that are in Haiti that have become almost like cartels, highly armed, heavily equipped, terrorizing, raping women, the whole 9 yards.
Armed by who, Dr. Daniels?
Well, many of the arms are coming right out of Miami in these open markets. That's where they're getting them, because you have faulty policy in this country, no gun control that to speak of. And so you can just go to Miami and purchase anything you want. And, they're involved in the drug traffic, so they have resources to do that and whatever. So they're well armed. They used to act at the behest of various factions. They now have said, well, why should we do that when we can be our own force? So they are formidable, right? Now, there's a Kenyan multinational security force that's deployed, but they don't have sufficient weaponry and the numbers to really counter them effectively. So before there can actually be a growth of democracy, there must first be reasonable security. And I say reasonable because we're not talking about going and slaughtering people and that kind of thing. We're talking about finding ways to disarm these gangs in a way that will allow democracy to thrive and grow. Now, what that means is, in this period, Biden has to take extraordinary means. And what I say in my article that I wrote on this matter is that it always seems possible. And they're shipping off stuff to Ukraine, which I have no objection to. That's already been authorized, but they're hurrying it out the door. But it also seems to be the case that when these wars and different things come up, the United States can somehow find money. If it's for Iraq and Afghanistan and whatever, we need them to find some resources for Haiti. And quite frankly, one of our researchers actually found a basis for Biden to do that. So we need both military aid and humanitarian aid in order for the people there to breathe so that the process can unfold. That's what we need immediately.
Where can our listeners get that article?
They can get that article on ibw21.org, ibw21.org. That's the website of the Institute of the Black World 21st Century. You will also see a series of articles that we've written on this subject matter. We invite them to do that because the other thing that we're doing is we are building a serious solidarity movement in this country between Haitian Americans and African Americans, because you might say we've been hanging out together for a long, long time.
On the question of security, maybe you do. I don't have much confidence that the United States under President Trump's leadership is going to do anything for Haiti. So my concern is whether or not you see any hope in expanding the Kenyan mission in Haiti, and or whether or not a multi-nation coalition within Africa itself could extend its military presence in Haiti to establish the order that you've suggested needs to be established.
That's what's going to have to happen. That is exactly what's going to happen, because obviously a U.S. invasion is not in the cards. I mean, that is just not going to happen. It should not happen. A UN mission is a possibility, but both the Chinese and the Russians have blocked it. So that can't happen. So the United Nations can't happen. So we're left with CARICOM and the African Union and other nations being able to cobble together sufficient resources in order to get this done. I'm convinced that if Biden will act, and he should act, and he should act also because Black people are the base of the Democratic Party. He needs to send a signal going out the door that he has our back and he has had our back. But in terms of building out the enthusiasm for the long haul, he needs to do that. I'm convinced if that happens, that there is sufficient will on the part of the Kenyans that have been very strong in moving forward, and this presidential council, and the people themselves who have been they have been blockading, they've been doing their own thing in some ways, which is a little dangerous because you don't want to get into extrajudicial executions and those kind of things. But I'm convinced that can happen. And I think that will give encouragement to CARICOM, working very closely with Congressman Gregory Meeks. He is the most powerful Black man most powerful man or person in Congress as it relates to these issues. He's a ranking member now, but he's been just getting back from Barbados and so forth. So he's working with CARICOM, working with the African Union. And frankly, I wish we could just work it out in that way. And I think there's an opportunity for us to do that. But we must be organized on this side in terms of Haitian Americans and African Americans and all people of goodwill working to, in fact, liberate and bring into the 21st century. And by the way, let me just say this. When Haiti reaches its full potential, it will be one of the most powerful nations in the world from a progressive point of view, because you're talking about nations like Jamaica being 3 million, Trinidad being 3 million, Grenada being 100,000. Some of these places. Haiti is 10 million people. And when you see the art and you see the ingenuity it will in a very productive way be a very, very, very positive development. And so we thank you for hosting this show. We thank your father, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, and we thank your brother, Jonathan Jackson, who has been working very closely with us in our Haiti Crisis Group for pushing this issue forward.
I'm very grateful, Dr. Ron Daniels, for your service. We want to support you in your efforts. We'll try and put it on our website. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.